Imagine this. It's the year 1986, a time when aviation giants were battling for dominance, and the world was hungry for faster and more efficient travel. It's also the same year when the MD-11 climbs into the sky for the first time, the culmination of a design lineage that stretches back to the DC-10. The DC-10 first flew in August 1970 and sold hundreds of examples, but by the 1970s and 80s, it was dogged by accidents and bad press. McDonnell Douglas needed a clean sheet successor, which could cater the needs of aviation giants that were longer, lighter, more efficient aircraft. This is the story of MD-11. Its bold beginnings, where the promises met reality, and how a plane built for passengers ended up finding its home carrying cargo. It was one of the most visually striking airliners of its era. A long-range tri-jet with sweeping winglets, a modern glass cockpit, and the promise of putting McDonnell Douglas back at the front of commercial aviation, which was needed at that time for maintaining its dominance in the aviation market. It's the year 1986. The MD-11 program has just launched. By the time assembly started in 1988, the airplane had already attracted orders of 52 firms with 40 options, and expectations were set high. On paper, the MD-11 looked like the right answer to the needs of aviation giants. The fuselage stretched roughly 11% longer than the DC-10 at about 61.6 meters. A two-crew glass cockpit, cutting crew and operational cost, offering a range of about 12,455 kilometers, accommodating around 298 passengers. It had the styling and the tech that was needed by most of the aviation giants. But things would unravel once the MD-11 met the real world. The first and most damaging problem was simple: performance. McDonnell Douglas sold the MD-11 with optimistic range and fuel burn numbers. Airlines bought into those promises. But in operational service, the MD-11 routinely failed to hit them. Real operational figures showed fuel burn that was higher than advertised. And because of this, the range fell short unless payload was significantly reduced. To reach the 12,455 kilometers spec, payload had to drop to around 22,000 kilograms, which was more than a 20% hit. With full payload, the practical range dropped to roughly 12,025 kilometers as compared to 12,455 kilometers, which was promised by the maker. For long-haul carriers, those shortfalls were fatal to commercial economics. Range and payload are airline currency. You lose them and you lose route flexibility and revenue. That gap between sales pitch and in-service reality led to public frustration. Major customers expressed their disappointment, which led to orders being reduced or canceled, and carriers started looking elsewhere. One of the largest customers of MD-11, Swissair, famously stated that McDonnell Douglas had oversold and underdelivered. It was a hit from which the aircraft never recovered. The MD-11 entered the market at the worst possible time. A global shift was happening, a shift the aircraft wasn't built to survive. Boeing's 777 was about to launch. Airbus was expanding its A330 line. Extended-range twin-engine operations performance standards were evolving fast, allowing two-engine jets to cross oceans safely and cheaply. Most of the airline giants saw two-engine jets as more fuel-efficient as compared to three- or four-engine design jets. Twin-engine jets burned far less fuel, required less maintenance, and were cheaper to operate. By the early 1990s, McDonnell Douglas was struggling financially. Their commercial division lacked the resources to compete with Boeing or Airbus. Because of all this, their R&D slowed, updates stalled, and development of future upgrades for the MD-11 became nearly impossible. As the reality set in, major airlines that once embraced the MD-11 began pulling away. Delta retired theirs early. American Airlines shifted to twin-engine jets. Singapore Airlines canceled orders, and Air France replaced theirs with A340. One by one, the MD-11 disappeared from passenger service. Not because it was a bad aircraft, but because the world had moved on. The MD-11 simply couldn't compete with the modern twin-engine jets, which were seen in the view of lower cost, higher range. The question that might arise from this is, why is the MD-11 still flying today? Here's the surprising twist. While it failed as a passenger jet, it became one of the most successful cargo aircraft in modern history. Its weaknesses became strengths in the cargo world. Its massive payload capacity, what airlines hated, cargo companies loved. Secondly, excellent performance as a freighter. The shorter than advertised range didn't matter. Cargo routes are flexible. Payload mattered more, and the MD-11 delivered. The MD-11 has become the backbone of night cargo networks worldwide, something it was never built for, but accidentally excelled at. Thirdly, FedEx and UPS saved it. Both FedEx and UPS ultimately gave the MD-11 its second life. After the aircraft struggled in passenger service, plagued by performance shortfalls and early handling issues, McDonnell Douglas and later Boeing found far more receptive customers among cargo carriers. FedEx acquired over 60 MD-11s, becoming the world's largest operator, while UPS added more than 35 to its fleet. By the mid-2010s, these two companies alone accounted for the majority of all MD-11s still flying. Today, nearly the entire global MD-11 fleet operates exclusively as freighters, with fewer than a handful still used for training or storage transition flights. Former passenger MD-11s were extensively converted for cargo service. Airlines removed the cabin interior, reinforced the floor for heavy freight loads, installed a main deck cargo door, updated avionics, and reconfigured systems for long-haul freight reliability. The aircraft's powerful tri-jet layout, once considered a liability in rising twin-engine operations performance standards, became an advantage for hauling dense cargo across long distances. But the end of the MD-11 era is now unmistakably approaching. Worldwide fleets are shrinking as operators replace them with more efficient twins like the Boeing 767 and 777F. FedEx and UPS have each begun retiring their MD-11s at an accelerating pace, often placing them into storage or parting them out for spares. The aircraft's age, fuel consumption, and increasingly strict noise rules are all pushing it toward retirement. The decline has also been underscored by recent high-profile incidents in the United States, reminding operators that the MD-11's demanding landing characteristics, especially its tendency toward hard touchdowns or bounce-induced rollovers, require immense precision. While the aircraft remains respected for its capacity and power, it is nearing the end of its long service life. For many aviation enthusiasts, watching the last FedEx and UPS MD-11s disappear from schedules marks the closing chapter of one of the most distinctive tri-jets ever built. In the cargo market, it found a second life, one that has lasted far longer than anyone expected. If you enjoyed this deep dive into aviation history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us keep bringing you more incredible aviation stories. For daily aviation content, behind-the-scenes insights, and everything that makes the aviation world amazing, follow us on Instagram at @aviatorsbird. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you on the next flight.